get started here. All right, well, welcome everybody. Hello, my name is Olivia Allison, and on behalf of the Center of Excellence for Hospitality Resilience, I am pleased to welcome you to the Ensuring a Resilient Event Business series. Today's module will focus on mastering the event industry and will cover the basic principles of the evolving event market. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. So this series is intended to support small tourism and hospitality businesses looking to create, sustain, and grow their event management offerings. This is a 6-part series, and it's brought to you by the Center of Excellence for Hospitality Resilience, which is a joint initiative of Temple University's School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management and Temple's Small Business Development Center. Today's module is a 60-minute session with a 30-minute Q&A where you are welcome to ask questions via the chat box or by using the Q&A function. And following the module, attendees are welcome to join our open office hours where you can ask today's presenter questions about topics covered in the session, as well as any questions pertaining to social events, wedding planning, and for-profit events. Now, these office hours are held from 3:30 to 5:30, and they're in a separate Zoom meeting. So you'll be able to unmute yourself and turn your camera on if you like, and ask your questions directly to Dion today. And I will post the link to register for those office hours if you haven't already done so. I'll do that in the chat box. But yeah, so let's get things started, and I will just pass the floor over to Dion here.
Hey, thank you, Olivia. And, thank you to SBDC for this wonderful opportunity. And at Temple University, we are so excited to be a part of this session. I wanted to share a little bit about who I am so that you know you are in the right place today. I am the owner of McGee Enterprises, and we provide third-party event management for companies as well as training around the hospitality industry, as well as I own ME Bode, which is a small business that helps entrepreneurs as they plan during their startup in terms of trademarks, etc. Also, I'm adjunct professor at Temple University, so that's why you're here. I have a love for education and sharing my knowledge with you today. And finally, I am founder of OmniPair, which is an online platform helping hospitality experts to be the very best that they can be. So again, lots of credentials, lots of things that you can see about my overall experience today. So certainly rest assured you are in the right place. If you don't mind, would you tell me a little bit about who you are today? Just in the chat box, just indicate if you are a business owner, a restaurant owner, maybe just an enthusiast of the event industry that you love. Everything's about meetings and events and weddings. If you're a student, a supplier, an entertainer, just let me know who you are today. And the reason I ask that is in academia, we talk about teaching to the middle. So I want to make sure that the content that you are receiving today is powerful, but also very relevant to where you are. All right. So just pop it in the chat window if you don't mind, and love to just understand a little bit about you today. We hope that this session is going to be interactive for you. So certainly you may not have the opportunity to ask me questions via audio, but certainly as things come to you and you want more information, please simply place that into the chat box and we'll certainly answer your questions that you have today. So in today's session, just so that we're clear about what you can expect, I'm going to share with you the industry statistics and best practices. And in that, there's this ideal of a 5-phase process. So as event planners, we use a meeting management process. I'm going to share that with you. So wherever you're coming from today, you'll really be able to grasp your arms around how we're managing through a process professionally. We're also going to discuss social media, not necessarily the definition of social media, but how are meeting planners using this successfully today? And if you are in the industry, new to the business, or if you're interested in starting up a new business, or perhaps you're looking for ways to reinvent what you do today, I'm going to share with you my recommendations when you are starting up a career and finding out what are those next steps recommended for businesses. And then we'll conclude this afternoon with best practices for COVID-19 planning. How do we prepare? How are we managing through that? And what are the resources? So thanks for popping into the chat. I see that we have some business owners of remarkable events and event planning business. Fantastic. So thank you again for sharing who you are and what you're doing today. So I'm going to wear my academic hat for a second, and I just want to talk to you about and introduce this ideal of eventology. It is the new science of human events. So the demand for events that produce measurable outcomes and financial sustainability has created what we call a crossroads of knowledge. And this intersection where creativity meets the science of business has resulted in a new interdisciplinary study that's called eventology. So it has several principles attached to it. And just so that we know what that means, first, the principle is how people learn through events. So for example, this class or this session today is how we are learning. Attending knowledge classes on how to do a job well is certainly how we are learning. Secondly, it's how communities are formed through events, how we are relating to each other, ensuring that we are connecting. And then finally, it is how behavior and thinking is changed for the purpose of achieving defined outcomes through events. Achieving the outcome by producing a successful event. So most of my clients ask me many times, what is an event? Because we're all confused about that. So here's the thing, your colleagues and your friends and your business partners may ask, hey, what do you know about eventology? So let's define very quickly what is an event. An event is divided into three categories. It's either corporate, nonprofit, or social. And in corporate, it's either examples such as conferences and meetings and product launches. Having a corporate kickoff meeting or a store grand opening is really called a corporate event. Then, of course, there's social. All those things that are more personal, like weddings and family reunions and birthdays. And then finally, in the middle is nonprofit. So if you notice, nonprofit is not connected to either or. So nonprofit is this independent category, which can have all kinds of things. So there you have it. Now you know the science of eventology, why we are excited as professionals about who we are and what we do. So talking about excitement, let me share with you some industry statistics, okay? You may be aware of this, but according to, the Allied Market Research, which is called an organization, it references that the events industry size is expected to reach 1,552.9 billion. That's estimated about 2 trillion by 2028, which is registering a GACR, which is the compound annual growth rate of 11.2%. So what does this mean for you and I? It means that if you are in an event business today, or if you're considering entering the business in terms of profession, or if you have a service that supports our segment, it suggests to us that we are still in the right place and that there's ample enough opportunity for growth and revenue, right? So we've seen this before. COVID-19 is here. Are we going to be able to manage through this experience? Absolutely. Just for an example, when the recession happened in 1990, when the business collapsed with the marketing, the mortgage industry, if you remember, where the houses were an issue, those events affected our industry. But what's great is we are resilient and know that we will continue to grow. We've been able to rebound and have great success in moving forward our event experience on behalf of our clients. So remember, we talked about those three segments for corporate and nonprofit and social. Well, in corporate, just so that you know, the most common types of corporate events are examples of conferences and exhibits, corporate events, seminars, promotions, fundraising, music and arts performance, sports, festivals, oh, the list goes on, trade shows and product launch events. So these are some examples, again, of the most popular events that if you are thinking about entering in the business, certainly if you can touch those segments or those types of most common events, again, you're in the right place. The key stakeholders within the events market are corporate, public, and what we call NGO, non-government organizations. All right, so who is dominating the space? It's been witnessed that events such as music concerts attract the majority of the population, especially the youth and middle-aged individuals, which helps to boost the events industry size. Now, music dominates most markets globally in the United States. Surprisingly, rap and hip hop is the most popular genre. Thus, the increase in such music concerts and events offers valuable opportunities for promoters and brands to align themselves with people attending concerts. So, music is all things, they dominate our event industry, and we know that it is powerful in terms of connecting with others. Now, following up in what we call sports marketing, it's become more commercialized in the recent years, and it comes in as the runner up. So, as defined as a subdivision of marketing, which focuses on both the promotion of sports events and teams, as well as the promotion of other products and services through sporting events and sporting teams. It's a service in which the element promoted can be a physical product or brand name. So I'm sure that you've heard of suppliers such as Red Bull and Monster, energy drink, the Nike shoes, Coca-Cola. They're all major players who typically sponsor most of our sports events that are quite major and are also very instrumental in kind of shaping our sports industry. So if you have a love or a passion for sports, consider sports marketing. All right, so moving on, all things about social. Again, I love weddings. I have to tell you, when I first started my business, I started doing, I was a corporate events planner. And then I realized, I love corporate events, but there wasn't any really creativity. So I fell in love with the whole idea of weddings. I planned over 100 weddings. It's always a fun and engaging experience. So certainly if you're interested and you love all things about personal experiences with people, then this is certainly an area you might want to consider, or that perhaps you're already working in today. Now, in this social category, we know in terms of forecasting, according to the IBS World 2020 report, that we're expected to reach 55 billion with the decrease of 7%. So think about that for a second. And let me ask you, and feel free to use the chat box if you don't mind. Why do you think this anticipated decrease is expected to happen? What are your thoughts around this? Why are we expecting the wedding social business to decrease in general? Any thoughts? I'm going to take a little sip of my coffee, so hopefully you have your special beverage there with you as well. Any thoughts around that? All right, so giving you an opportunity to just give me your thoughts. If not, no problem. I'll certainly provide you with our professional opinion of why we believe this particular industry is experiencing or will continue to experience a decrease. So if you've guessed the answer of the use, okay, we've got an answer here. So what about micro and intimate events, according to one of our participants, and thank you, are trending in the industry? So the cost per event is lower currently. Okay, so the cost of these events are trending, so they're lower. That's a good guess, and thank you for that. That's excellent. Appreciate the feedback. One of the major reasons is because of the use of current and new technology, right? Everything our clients feel as if they can do on their own. This whole ideal of the DIY phase. There is this concept of we have oversaturation of information. Our clients feel as if they can do all things. They don't need a professional. But in theory, they really do need the support of what we provide. And then, of course, COVID-19 is driving behavior changes where large gatherings become a primary discussion. Should we be having the event? Do we want to expose people? Are people afraid? So those are the main three reasons why we are continuing to experience a decrease overall. And thank you for that about the costs. We also know that costs are certainly decreasing in general. When we're planning an event, when you say that there's a wedding, costs expected to increase by 25% because it's a wedding. So as meeting planners, we tend to take the word out of wedding and just call it a celebration when we are in that sourcing and finding the revenue and partnering with those suppliers who can provide support to our wedding and social clients. So that's a little bit of information about weddings. Now, also, we know that weddings in general, according to the Wedding Knot, wedding plans were forced to change amongst our couples last year for the majority of couples, including 43% who continue with their ceremony and the reception in 2021 by adding a virtual component, while 5% confirmed that their weddings were going to be virtual. So think about 5% out of the entire majority. So the majority of couples feel as if they see value in person experiences. We know that weddings will continue, but most have added a virtual component. Interesting, right? If you offer an outdoor space, we know that the use of outdoor space is increased by 36%. So that makes sense, especially in the COVID climate. So just consider to think about if we're offering these opportunities and designing spaces that we consider outdoor spaces. In terms of participants who are attending events, 1.5 billion participants over 180 countries have attended the event experience. That's huge and that's amazing. The largest expense is related to travel. So if you are a hotel venue, or if you are a perhaps even a travel agency or someone who provides a service in the travel arena, it suggests to us that you are still in the right place. If you want to grow your services, think about offering some aspect of travel, because again, the largest expense is related to travel overall. All right. And when it comes to people, 2.5 million jobs have been supported by the industry. This is pre-COVID, and we expect that this will continue and trend, or if it has decreased slightly, we do expect that this will come back in general. So if you ask all about the money, how much are employees and companies averaging in general around salaries? If you are an employee in general in the market, we know that the yearly salaries range, according to the IBIS World 2020 report, anywhere between $55,000 to $75,000. It's pretty good. And companies, we also know that the revenue is unlimited. So you have the opportunity to make as much money as you would like in terms of revenue overall. Now, as evidence of that, I wanted to share with you a case study. There's a company called Aced It Events. You may have heard of this company before. And if you have a chance, feel free to Google Forbes.com, an article that celebrates Aced It Events, in which this particular owner of her event planning company has reached $1 million worth of revenue. Oh my God, that's amazing. I think that's fantastic. I would love to be her partner, right? What are the key things that she did that was very successful? Just simply suggests that there is still wonderful opportunity for us in the meetings and events industry. Now, let's talk about, since we talked about, ACID and being successful in getting $1 million, then there are career opportunities, obviously, in the industry. And according to the Events Industry Council, over 50% of all event planners have a bachelor's degree, and nearly 20% have a master's degree. There are over 10,000 certified meeting planners or meeting professionals like myself in the industry. And one of the growth areas is actually absolutely virtual events. So therefore, the greater knowledge in this area will help to improve employment opportunities in the future. And as always, one must continue to practice self-improvement through continuous education every year. So if you ask Mr. McGee, how do you start? Where do you start if I'm looking at a career? Or what are those potential opportunities to stand out amongst the crowd? And that is by either attending certification programs or acquiring credentials. So I've highlighted for you a few of the most common certifications in the industry. There are dozens, but my recommendation to you, if you're planning meetings, maybe it's a certified meeting planner, CMP, the certificate of meeting management, CMM, there's the certified special event professional, CSEP, and of course, there's so many others here. Certified wedding planner is very popular. The difference between the two are as follows. A certificate program is a program in which it means that you as the individual has completed a particular set of curriculum. So you've mastered a curriculum. But certified, remember it's the credentials after your name. It means that it is a distinction of certified, that you are the individual, you've gained and mastered the body of knowledge, but you've also have been tested and you passed a particular test. My mom would always say, if you can't get the credentials in front of your name, like doctor and et cetera, then get them in the back. So consider that as well. Some common event positions in our industry, a meeting manager, event planner, a sports event director, a festival planner, the list just goes on and on. Now, in addition, I talked about, if you were in the career and in the industry and you're looking to have a career in our industry. So I'm just going to summarize a few of these key points. And that starts with motivation through strategy, networking, job search, and education. So simply what this means is first, think about what is your dream job? What really motivates you? What are you passionate about? And consider asking colleagues and friends in the industry their experiences. What do you learn? What do you like? What do you not like about your job? And in terms of strategy, secondly, deciding what field you want to work in. And is this an opportunity that's attached to a community endeavor? Do you like raising funds and you work for a nonprofit? Is this something that's dear to your heart that you want to see in the marketplace be very successful? And in terms of networking, absolutely consider those mentors who could support you in your next steps in development. And of course, for job search, we've identified some valuable resources. Indeed.com is fantastic. There is also another resource called the meetingjobs.com, really common. And then in terms of education, absolutely consider those education courses and credentials that we spoke of. Now, if you are in a business, we'll switch gears just quickly here and talk about business planning, setup, networking, RFP and others, education, and CQI, which is continuous quality improvement. So in terms of the first steps of business planning, what is your business strategy? Do you have a business plan? Have you identified fields of gap that you can fulfill in the industry? For example, if you have an event planning company and you are looking to fulfill the gap of perhaps there is no one setting up services for perhaps it's an event that you want folks to rally around the new cause of testing for COVID. That has been a new gap of service. So perhaps you as a company can fulfill the need. Looking at any of your additional business resources in the area. Also, be sure that you're registering and setting up your business correctly, that you're a legitimate business that can absolutely be respected in the industry. Of course, when you're networking, joining those organizations and other social media networks, reviewing what we call the RFP, request for proposal. There are opportunities for you to absolutely submit for business. We call that request for proposal process. And quite honestly, Googling for request for proposal. There are many organizations post those online for you to respond to. And in terms of education and business QI, be sure to consider other organizations like Meeting Professionals International and the International Live Events Association are really great places to start. And then finally, looking at benchmarking activities for your business. Again, what is your strategy for growth? And are you creating those standard operating procedures to help you be successful? All right, so that's the business side of it. Now, the best practice in event management requires a proactive approach to positive and negative impact management. Therefore, event owners and professionals aid its organizations by ensuring and identifying key potential impacts of events and meetings. And three common impacts of events are economic, social, and environmental. Now, through identifying the potential negative impacts of the event and developing strategies to eliminate or at least minimize, you can help reduce the negative consequences that are arising from planning or staging the event. So let's define these really quickly. So what is economic impact? It examines the effect of an event on the economy in a specified area that ranges from a single neighborhood to the entire globe. It usually measures changes in business revenue, profile, personal wages, and/or jobs. So a good example is the creation of part-time and full-time jobs. So if you ask me, you may not be in the meetings industry, but everything that you do absolutely is key for us to know how our impact is positive or negative on the work that we do. So here's a case study. According to the 8th Annual Conference of the National Association of Community Development Extension Professionals, their goal was to increase visitor length and have these visitors spend more money. So by looking at the economic impact and developing some strategies around that, the result is that this conference was able to increase the spend to 7.3 million versus the 3 million last year. They were able to create new jobs and ensure that the labor supply increased, that there was more spending overall in public services, and really increasing the standard of living, finally resulting in a better awareness of the destination in which the event was being produced. So that's another good example of a way to ensure that you're having a positive impact. Now, secondly, is the environmental impact, defined as any change in the environment that adverse or beneficially results from a facility's activities and products or services. So in other words, it is the effect that people's actions have on the environment. And I think we know what that means. So let's talk about some case study examples. For example, according to Signed MD, a company has referenced that as well as working for the Policy Guide, my business partner and I run an events company in London. And the way that we've made our events environmentally friendly is trying to rely on natural light. So if it's not possible, they were able to use eco-friendly light bulbs. The second example by season events is we never waste food. We give leftovers to homeless people or shelters. We always have our team recycle where possible. So two more examples of how we can impact the environment in a positive way. And then finally, social impact, the effect on the people and communities that happens as a result of an action or inaction or activity, project, program, or policy. So for an example, the NFL Super Bowl creates what they call in each Super Bowl city, youth cities. And youth cities are benefiting youth people with an interest in sports, entertainment, and service commitment. So they're able to create events within events, and more importantly, allowing the youth to be engaged in the NFL experience when it arrives in each of the cities. So another good case study example is an accounting firm wanted to support a charitable event, but struggled to find something that could really make a difference. So based on the interests of employees, the firm opted to support a local children's hospital. And along with the regular aspects of supporting a children's hospital, financial and volunteer support, the members of the firm began sitting on the hospital's board using their financial savvy to make a greater impact. So this is an example of using your in-house staff that can organically create an experience to change and be a part of something that is bigger than who they really are. So that is all about the social impact. So in summary, for the majority, major events have the potential to have positive effects on the people and communities that interact with them. So they have the power to mobilize large numbers of people and create meaningful impacts on their lives in a number of different ways. Definitely consider how these impacts can absolutely affect and ensure that your event is done and executed in a great way. Now, we spoke a lot about events and impact and how we manage that. As a certified project manager, we may call that the risk management plan. But I wanted to also share with you from an event perspective as event professionals, we move through what we call a 5-phase process. There are other processes as well through the official Project Management Global Institute. There are others that you may be aware of, but officially, this is one that we have found very effective. And it was designed by Dr. Joe Goldblatt, and it aligns with the Special Events John Wiley and Sons 8th edition. It is the platform for achieving strategic and measurable goals and objectives for the event. And if you know, it's counterclockwise. So just to walk you through these really quickly, again, you may ask, why is this important to me? Because when you leave me today, you're going to be so much more well organized in terms of you may have done this before, but this is really just a confirmation that perhaps you are absolutely doing it the right way. So phase 1 is all about research, how we are gathering the facts and details regarding the event. Now, sometimes an event professional, the first thing we want to do is go straight to the planning. We want to figure it out. Where are we going to host the event? How are we going to manage it? And what is the theme? But really, the first step is identifying research. And research is the longest phase of the 5-phase process. Why is it the longest? Because we do all of our work in this phase. We do most of our work in this phase. Identifying things such as, is there a need for the event? What are the best practice models? What is our risk management, compliance, ethical issues, and so on? So these are just some good examples to use when you're thinking about moving through the event experience. Let's talk about the research. A part of the research phase can also include 3 really key important questions. Is it feasible? Does it make sense that we should be doing a 1,000 person wedding in the middle of COVID? Maybe not. Maybe it isn't feasible. Is it viable? Again, with COVID, and we're planning this wedding of 1,000 people, will people want to attend a group experience? So is it viable? Can we sustain, can we have enough PPE equipment to make people feel safe and comfortable together? And then finally, is your event sustainable? Can we produce an event experience over and over that is successful for our clients? With less budget year after year, with less people to involve. Maybe we've had a year to plan and now we only have 8 months to plan. So is the event sustainable? One of the tools that we use in research is the critical points. In addition, when we're researching industry best practices, organizations understand the value of successfully managing through this. So some of the key recommendations is to review industry publications, videos to benchmark your event, to identify key variables that qualify the event as the best practice, and to adopt and adapt those practices from other events that you feel can improve your event outcome. All right, so that's research. Now, secondly, is all about design, the process of documenting the vision. So this is what I call the blueprint of actually thinking through how the event will look. Now, one of the tools that we use, and you may be very familiar with this, is called SMART goals. And have you heard of the SMART goals? It's those goals that help to really create specifically, the documented evidence in which why we are doing what we do. Specific, what do you want to accomplish? Very clearly, we want 1,000 people to attend our event. Is it measurable? How will you know when you've reached the goal? We know we reached the goal because 1,000 people have registered, right? Very specific and measurable. Then achievable. Do you have the power to achieve what you said you were going to do? Many times as event planners, we don't have the power. So we want to be able to discuss, do I have the authority to move forward what you've asked me to do? And then is it realistic? Can you realistically achieve it? 1,000 people at a wedding, is that going to be realistic? And then finally, timely. When exactly do you want to accomplish this? If we have 1 month to plan a wedding for 1,000 people, it may not be timely. So in terms of the SMART goal process, you can look back and kind of explain to the client, this may not be achievable. This is a great tool to also use when you're planning your social events as well, like weddings. Another tool is called the inductive reasoning, which filters ideas and identifies most logical and effective solutions. So this is the standard way of in which having a group of people sit around the table and have discussions around ideas. They debate and have those ideas, and then they move to a solution. So the old traditional way of debating and discussing is by far the most popular way when you're moving through the design phase. All right, you're doing good. Hang in there. This is so exciting. Now, again, just to recap, this particular phase, some of the tools and techniques are the use of floor designs, contracts, addendums, other successful clauses are just some great examples to help us move through the design phase. All right, third is planning, the process of planning for the event. So now we can do the planning. And the first successful tool, obviously, is budget. I'm not going to go through what a event budget is because I'm sure we know that. But the working budget helps to reflect, how we're going to align those operational costs and actual revenues. Really important to begin with a budget because the budget dictates what we can deliver to the client. Some of the tools in this particular planning phase is the use of Microsoft, of course, the old traditional way in which we are managing the events. We do it today. We continue to do that. Just make a note, there are many technical tools that are available and apps, etc. Absolutely love all of those. But for the most part, our event meeting planners and those that are in the industry are still using the old traditional Microsoft platforms. I'm looking at historical data, those previous event evaluations and other presentations, looking at your indicators for the economy and the community are just as important when you are planning. And finally, any operational process assessments, OPAs, which are your internal processes and policies and knowledge bases that you should follow or refer to. And then finally is the fourth is the coordination phase. This is doing the work now. So now we can do the work, including the RFP process or proposal. And a good example of coordination is the critical calendar timeline. You may do this today, or if you don't do it, consider doing it, but it helps to indicate for your clients where you are in terms of, this is an example of a load in and load out calendar, but you could actually use this calendar in any way. Perhaps it's to identify the 5-phase process that we talked about, who's responsible for it. But I find this very, very important because many times my client will want to discuss topics that we're not ready to talk about. Why are we talking about, food and beverage when we're 12 months out? Catering companies and hotels, they don't want to talk to us about food and beverage until we're about 3 months out. So I use the critical calendar timeline to help set the expectations for clients. Some of the tools and techniques most common is the risk management plan, referring to your contracts, non-disclosure agreements, and any other unique production schedules, the event specification guide, et cetera, that you may use, are your event Bible. And phase 5, the final phase, the evaluation phase, creating an opportunity to look at the feedback and request feedback from those that you find are really important that you want to hear from. It is the second most important phase in the 5-phase process. So we want to be sure that we close the gap and understand how we can be effective or how we can improve our experiences moving forward, okay? So in recap and review, hopefully now we understand the 5-phase process and how we use that. Perhaps it's just a physical checkpoint or checklist to remind us of all of the steps that we are going through, but now you officially know how we move through the process. Some of the tools in that is just lessons learned and your stakeholder feedback. All right, so I wanted to chat a little bit about the event trends that we are seeing in general, and hopefully you are aware of these as well. So first, We know that there's a massive global movement to increase environmental action, and events are no exception. And at this point, sustainability has moved beyond a national trend. It's a global responsibility. Sustainability matters, but does it matter enough? So some of the common trends in terms of top five, the use of e-ticket and reducing paper waste. You probably have found that where event professionals, and you may use this today in terms of registration, we're moving to e-commerce. 50% are using reusable or biodegradable items. 46% are offering vegetarian or vegan options, right? Giving different dietary options to our attendees. We're also encouraging the public to use our transport in terms of public transportation and carpooling, asking them to pull together so that we can decrease the environmental impact. And then 19% are working with venues that have a recycling program. So these are some common trends that certainly we are following today, and they'll continue to grow. Diversity is also an important focus for all of our event creators in North America. Even a bigger number, 81% of those event planners agree that promoting events to a more diverse audience is a socially conscious way to scale the event. So some examples are, according to the event professionals, 48% are planning for diversity within speakers and talent and subject matter. So presenting ways in which the audience can see themselves in terms of a diversity or someone that is delivering a key message that they can be comfortable with. 30% are offering diverse dietary options. 32% have a code of conduct that promotes diversity. So this is very interesting, promoting a code of conduct, offering to our staff how we should engage people, not just people that are from diverse backgrounds, but from people who have an emotional challenge or they're physically challenged. Maybe they have a learning disability. So being more sensitive to that is creating the opportunity to create a new code of conduct. And then the use of inclusive fields and registration forms, and then granting scholarships to other event attendees. So perhaps those groups of folks who wouldn't be able to attend the conference because the cost may be prohibitive, they are allowing for grants in terms of scholarships for this group of individuals to attend. So those are some common trends to think about. So the top three challenges are identified by event professionals. The biggest challenge by far, number one, is reaching the event attendees. So while event creators are reporting a steady amount of pressure, they do think 66%, according to the Events Industry Council, reports that it will only become more difficult to achieve and reach their goals in the coming years. The second and third biggest challenge is insufficient budget and ticket sales. So not surprisingly, many of the responses point to marketing related struggles. And many of these opportunities for 2001 and beyond lies within this realm. So as we move through COVID-19 planning and virtual experiences, we are reinventing the way we produce, plan, and manage our mini event experiences. So some of the opportunities to grow the audience in 2021, heavily cited, is around event promotion. So this includes word of mouth, social media marketing, and email marketing. So you can see here that the success is identified to be effective from 80 to 95%. This simply suggests to us that if we are still engaging our audiences, that we continue to deploy the use of these three tactics: word of mouth, social media, and event marketing. Now, there are some high performing tactics in terms of marketing, and I'm just going to briefly walk through these with you. Hopefully we're doing them today, but we know as successful event project management companies, we know that these four tactics are very, very important. And hopefully you'll add them into your marketing arsenal as well. So this includes content marketing, public relations, experiential marketing, and use of video. So content marketing, 93% of respondents that use video find it effective for marketing. And the whole gamut of content shared online, which includes blog posts, videos, GIFs, and social media, help to increase that risk. So there's a lot of room for us to grow. So think about content being very engaging, how we publish it, what we publish it, is it the right medium in which to reach our audience? Secondly, public relations. So while publicity is something that every event wants, only half of our event creators use public relations tactics. So with social media at everyone's fingertips, it can be tempting to rely on our own channels to spread the word, but the right external media coverage can help project your event to a whole new audience. Third of all is the experiential marketing. So building on the trend of immersive experiences at events, experiential marketing campaigns can help capture the audience attendance in a big way. And our event creators really rely on this particular concept, which is quite new. For an example, creating pop-ups at large events that complement yours, creating those pop-ups to environments such as a HQ brand or a vendor site, and then maybe taking the experience to the streets in a public venue with a built-in audience are ways to have the audience engage and experience something that is bigger than who they really are. And then finally, without said is the use of video. When it comes to portraying event vibes and spirit, video is absolutely the most obvious and hard to beat medium. According to the video expert Animato, 93% of businesses have achieved 50% of their customers thanks to a video on social media. And video is absolutely the best performing content type of all time. So if you are looking through continuing to manage your marketing, absolutely one of the greater returns on investment is the use of video. So let's put this together in summary. So we want to be sure that we're creating a diverse and inclusive event, that we are looking at eco-friendly event options such as eliminating waste, ensuring that there are reusable, biodegradable items, and then also creating this immersive experience, the marketing experiential options for those participants to be engaged. All right, doing great. Remember I talked a little bit about social media for events. I won't define this for you, but I want to share with you why this is working for us and that we should continue to use social media. When it comes to the most common types of social media, according to the Event Manager's blog, there are Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and blogs. So the first three top common social medias that we should continue to deploy is Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Absolutely. If you notice, there's one social media that's not included on this list. And that is, and maybe you've already guessed it, but TikTok. And why do you think that's not included? So I'll give you a chance to think about that for a second. But in social media, again, TikTok is not one of the listed social media platforms. I wonder why. So if you guessed it, the reason why TikTok is not included is because it is yet a new platform that has not been fully vetted in the industry. So we're hoping in the next couple of years, we'll be able to report that TikTok is certainly a place that businesses should be managing and really kind of engaging clients and audiences. We're just not sure it's the right place to be. Now, there was a question in the chat, and thank you for bringing that forward. And the question was, and we'll go back to the slide in terms of public relations, can you give examples of public relations tactics? Good example. So in the industry, there are such things as what's very common is a press release, right? We want to be sure that there is a press release that is well written that we can send to our media partners. Others are industry publications and blogs, partnering with those publications to share the news of your event. Perhaps there's community newsletters. Another tactic is creating your own individual podcast, really common. attending, being a part of city guides by your CVB, your Central Visitors Bureau, and being listed on those tourism websites are some other ways that you can clearly engage around public relations. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. And thanks for asking. Now, who's using social media more effectively? We note that in terms of marketing, event feedback, and sharing media in terms of video and or a photo are the most effective ways to use social media. So hopefully you are doing those things, asking for feedback, marketing your event, and ensuring that you are sharing great content. Now, the cost of social media is less than what we think. According to this particular poll for the Event Managers blog, less than $200 is spent, or nothing. So this suggests that there really isn't a big cost around using social media. Now, you might be in a company or part of a company that has a team of social media people who do this every day, which is great. But this at least suggests to us that you can do your own social media and do it well. And there's usually no real cost tied to it. One of the biggest social media challenges, according to 51% of meeting planners, they're figuring out how to use it more effectively. I think this is common for us, is how do we use social media in the most effective way? And then just finding the time to do social media. It is said that an event on average takes 7 hours per week to adequately manage social media. So if you think about it, 7 times 7, 14, that's 15, that's about 30 hours in a month to spend on just social media. That's a lot of time. So if you know that the takeaway here is if you have the time to spend, the return on the volume is going to be great, but it also suggests that perhaps there's not a lot of costs should be involved. Now, does it work? Absolutely. 37% of our event and corporate planners report that social media exposure is a key measure for their success, which indicates a 15% return on investment. So most beneficial is word of mouth, newsletters, radio, press releases that we talked about before, and just ensuring that you have those elements engaged in your social media campaign is very important. Now, some would ask, Dion, where do we start with identifying maybe a full recommendation around social media theme events? Certainly Google eventmanagerblog.com. Hopefully this gives you a reference. This is a wonderful tool. It's about 152 pages that's going to walk you through how you can engage social media in your event. Okay. So finally, I wanted to wrap up with two things around pandemic planning and just leave you with a few resources for managing through COVID-19. Obviously, our events industry is profoundly impacted due to the pandemic. And we want to be sure that we are engaging experiences and following our guidelines. So be sure to reference the CDC guiding principles. And this is available again at the cdc.gov. Consider this as one of your resources when you are moving through the CDC guiding principles. Also, feel free to Google me on YouTube. I have a 9-minute session on how you can effectively plan your large gatherings and meet the particular principles that are identified by the CDC. Okay. So another resource for you in terms of COVID-19 planning, as we mentioned, this is just a reminder of the CDC, cdc.gov, so we talked about that. But another resource available to you is called the eventscouncil.org. This is an organization that has created a COVID-19 task force that really helps to drive awareness. They give you fantastic resources around how to manage through all different elements. I would absolutely suggest that you add this to your resources, okay? So around COVID-19. In addition, if you're also looking for more resources around project management, kind of what we discussed today in general, don't forget that here at Temple University, we offer many courses around just in general our hospitality industry. I also have two particular products available, which is the Eventi Focus. It's project management for events. And then OmniPair is another platform if you're looking to be certified in meeting planning, to understand again, project management events, consider the resources. And then the Events Industry Council, where you saw the COVID-19 resources, consider again adding them to your platform. Now, one last thing here, just as a reminder, if you've enjoyed what you have learned today at Temple University, we teach the Event Leadership Executive Certificate. So consider that and joining. It's instructed by other professionals in the industry like myself who are very passionate about the work that we do today. A lot of the resources today that I shared with you are from the Special Events book, the PCMA book, also from the Events Industry Council Manual, and of course, OmniPair, the CMP Knowledge Training and Bootcamp, okay? So just as a reminder, this presentation will be available for you because I know it's a lot of information, but you hung in here and I am so grateful for your time. So in summary, we talked about the industry statistics and best practices. So hopefully you've enjoyed that experience. Also, you're now a little bit more knowledgeable of understanding the event 5-phase process, how that works in terms of using current industry tools. We talked a bit about social media and the milestones and new opportunities if you're considering a career or starting a new business or just reinventing who you are in general. And of course, I have left you with around resources for COVID-19 planning and being prepared. So again, if you find that you want to know more about it in terms of our industry and information on the Event Leadership Executive Certificate Program, here's a great link that we have available for you. We'll place this in the chat session and certainly reach out to our Executive Director, which is Mr. Ira Rosen. He would love to hear from you, certainly if you're interested. I'll also leave you with my contact information. Love to hear from you. Find me on LinkedIn. Let's be business associates, meaning that at least we know of each other. And I've certainly left my information here and look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or if you are looking for a little more feedback or direction in general. So with that said, again, thank you so much for your time on this Saturday. We are so appreciative of you joining us today. I'm going to hand it over to my esteemed colleague, Olivia, for any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Dion. And yes, we have now time for people to ask any questions they'd like. If you want to use the chat box, you can just type it in there. You can also use the Q&A function in Zoom. And while everyone is taking the time to type any questions they have, I've been posting some resources in the chat box. And so I'm also going to post a link to a survey that we would really love for all of our attendees to take. Just helps give us some feedback on these webinars and some insight into what you'd like to see in future planning. So please, if you have time, take a minute to take that. And I'm going to repost the link. Again, so now's the time to post any questions if you like, but we also do have the Zoom office hours that will start at 3:30, where you can speak with Dion, ask any questions you like. So if you haven't had a chance to register for those, there's a link right there in the chat box for you to register. It's sort of a slightly more intimate environment. We let about 4 people in at a time. You can turn your camera on, unmute yourself, and ask any questions that you might have. And then lastly, we also have a link for Temple's Small Business Development Center. They are, constantly posting updates, offering all kinds of really great resources. You can get yourself connected with a consultant if you need some one-on-one insight help about your business. They are a really excellent resource that we have here at Temple University. So Dion and I are going to hang around for a few more minutes for any questions that may arise. But if anyone else needs to get on with their Saturday, thank you so much for joining us. And we hopefully will see you again in the coming weeks. Oh, we've got a question here. Okay. What does experiential marketing look like for a very diverse setting of backgrounds, ages, etc.?
So good question. Thank you for asking. I'm going to share a slide with you first, and I think this may be helpful. When we talk about event diversity, maybe you've heard of a concept called DEI, and DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in events, we talk about event diversity, right? But this is also very, very key to when we are developing, as you say, the experiential marketing piece. Diversity meaning, does it encompass the differences that make us unique? So, our race, our gender identity, how do we show up in communities is diversity. Equity is all about, it's not equality. It's talking about offering a fair chance where everyone gets what they need in order to be successful. So giving people very specific items and tools to be successful. At an event, what are the things that we can do to allow people to feel as if they're part of the experience, that they're having a good time, right? And then finally, inclusion. The attitudes that we possess are the actions that leads individuals to feel that they are in a safe place, welcomed and celebrated. So all that creates belonging, the sense of feelings, wanting to be a part of the event experience. So when we talk about event marketing, or the experiential piece, is looking at ways that you can engage the audience to be a part of something more experiential. If it's children, if it's young kids, what are the things that they like to do? Is there a video component? Is there a room that they can go and network and have games and play on teams with a video room, et cetera? What are some other ways to just engage them in the overall experience in general? I hope that helps. And if you have any really specific questions, I'm certainly happy to answer that.
There's a question in the Q&A that says, where might we find community newsletters, etc., in order to include our information?
Good question. So where you can find, community newsletters would be starting with your, I would say your Convention Visitors Bureau, where you are, just Google Convention Industry Bureau. Every major city has a CVB. But more, if you're looking for more tactical options, maybe it's the communities that can benefit from your event. If you're doing, for example, a race for the cure, that's organizations that are particularly dominated by women. So what are the communities and organizations that women belong to? Finding them on the internet, calling around to say, hey, what groups do they belong to? And then asking, do you have a newsletter or do you have free content that I can contribute to you that can share more about the event and why we want to partner and bring more people to the experience? Okay, that's where I would start first.
Any other questions? All right, well, if not, if anyone does have questions they do want to ask, again, we will see you at 3:30 for those office hours. But thank you so much for joining us today. And like I said, we hope to see you next week. So enjoy your Saturday and the rest of your weekend.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.